There's been a lot of conversation online as of late about what Catholic dating couples are allowed to do, particularly are they allowed to kiss each other? And so while that whole discussion has inspired what I'd like to say in this video, that's not the question I'm going to be answering, and that's not primarily what I'm going to be talking about. I just want to offer some perspective for Catholic dating couples who aren't married for when following the teachings of the church becomes difficult. And it's simply this. The dating portion of your life doesn't have to be very long. 1-2 years in the grand scheme of things is a drop in the bucket. And that's not to say you should wish that time away. But it is to say you should be true to what that time is for. And when you're true to what that time is for, it'll serve you well. But it's also, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't need to be that long of time. See, what is the dating time for? It's about deciding and discerning, am I called to be married, and am I called to be married to this person? That's what it's for. And it's important to be able to keep a clear head so that you can make those decisions and make those judgments and grow in the virtues that will prepare you for marriage by practicing good Christian communication, some of what we teach at this apostolate, by learning your faith, by learning the other person, and by making sure that the person you're going to marry is a person who shares the faith with you, shares the same values, knows how to communicate, knows how to be self-reflective and recognize their own woundedness, where you and that other person are about the journey of your own healing as well. If you keep to the purpose of dating, and by the way, if you keep to the purpose of dating, which includes following the teachings of the church, even when it's hard to do so, it does, in the grand scheme of things, 1-2 years of your life, it's not that long. And when you do everything I mentioned, plus when it comes to bonding, when you learn how to bond in other ways through problem solving together, through the appropriate bonding of friendship, but following the teaching of the church to not fornicate and not bond in the way that's proper only to married couples. I mean, first of all, if you have to break up, it'll be a lot less painful. But second of all, you'll build a really good foundation for marriage. And third of all, once you both decide that you want to get married, go for it and get it done as soon as possible through the proper marriage process of the church and in the church, of course. But get married as soon as possible. This idea that marriage and having children is something that has to be put off until you're much older and have done the things you wanted to do, that's not of God. It's not to say some people won't, in following the path of God, end up getting married later. But that is to say that I think God would rather see people get married younger, have kids younger, get on about, building their life with their spouse and their children younger. I think God wants that. And I think that's good for us. Especially when you consider that maximum fertility years are between 18 and in your early through your 20s. That all just makes sense, but I wanted to share that perspective because at the end of the day, following the teachings of the church are always good for us. They're good for our soul and keep us pleasing to God, but they're also good for us in regard to what's temporal and what's logical and what makes sense. It's also very practical. But it also, I don't like to make it just about what you're not supposed to do, but why it's good for you and what this is all for. And so while keeping in mind your salvation and your holiness, also realize that it's for your good. This is also inspired by, I got to give a shout out to Adam Lane Smith, whose judgment I've come to trust, and I'm a big believer in attachment theory, and perhaps we can talk about that more in another video. But and he's Catholic, and 3 dates, 6 months to test what you've learned on those 3 dates, and then you can be ready to get married. What's all of that? A year? Again, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a long time. And I'll also say this too. My wife and I were married in less than a year after we started dating. And perhaps that's when we were most ready, but if I'm honest, I often wish we had met a long time ago and gotten married years ago. That would be more of my life I get to have with her. I know every dating couple at some deep level who's called to marriage wants that too. My whole point here is this. When the continence that you're called to outside of marriage gets tough, just remember, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't need to be that long of your life. It doesn't mean you're wishing it away. That means you're staying true to the purpose of what the dating period's for. Soon enough, you'll be able to be married and hopefully live happily ever after, now and for eternity.